Om Shanti. Tamil actor Mr. Rajnikanth, in a public speech that he delivered some 20 years back, said a story where Russian president, American president, and Indian prime minister visits Lord Brahma. And American president asked Brahma when America will be free of all problems. And Brahma replied that it will take another 70 years for America to get rid of all problems. When the same question was asked by Russian President, Brahma said that Russia will be free of all problems after the death of that Russian president. When Indian Prime Minister asked the same question to Lord Brahma about India, Lord Brahma started crying and said, Lord Brahma himself has to die. Only then India will be free of all problems. And Rajnikanth added that there is absolutely no death for Brahma, so obviously India is not going to get rid of any problem. He came up with this story to make fun of Indian politics at that time. But least did he know that what he said is absolutely right. But unlike what Rajnikanth and many others think, it is not true that Brahma has no death at all. Everybody except God Shiva has to enter this birth and death cycle. So Brahma actually has his role only towards the end of Kali Yuga, which is now. So he was just an ordinary man like you and me. But it is only when God Shiva enters an old man's body that he named that old man as Brahma. The reason God Shiva enters that old man's body is to give the knowledge that is required for humans to be converted from the old world, which is hell, which is now, to the deity of the new golden world called Satyug. So one has to transform himself radically to be able to enter to heaven, because this is a 5,000 year time cycle, the first half of which would be heaven, followed by the later half as hell. While it was heaven, we would be deities. We would be soul conscious, which means we considered ourselves to be the soul that shines like a tiny star in between the eyebrows, which is why Hindus have the habit of wearing religious symbols in between the eyebrows. So they don't fall for the external beauties. They don't get tempted by anything in the world. Instead, they would always remain blissful, because blissfulness is the true nature of soul. So since they were soul conscious, they were able to maintain the blissful state forever. So that continues for the first 2,500 years, where this world continues to be heaven. So as the name heaven suggests, it was filled with everything. So the nature would be first class, and the animals, birds, everything would be first class, meaning they don't fight with each other, they just spread love among themselves. For example, lion and cow, they drink water from the same pond at the same time, which means they don't feed on each other. Even animals don't hurt each other while in heaven, they just feed on plants. And humans, they would be filled with divine qualities like peacefulness, blissfulness, love, and they will be very wealthy and healthy. So that was the kind of life they enjoyed for the first 2500 years. And after that, after taking several rebirths for the first 2500 years, they enter hell, which means the world itself becomes hell. When they lose soul consciousness and become body conscious, because of which they get addicted to sensual pleasures, because of which they got addicted to the five vices: lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. So they start committing sin after sin, because of which they are being punished by various diseases, natural calamities, and all sorts of relationship problems. And when these problems reach its peak towards the end of Kali Yuga, God comes, enters an old man's body, and gives this teaching to help mankind to escape the punishment for the sins they have committed for the last 2500 years. And the way for that is pretty simple. He asks us to consider ourselves to be the souls again, and we need to remember God as a point of light, because that's how He is, because He is also a soul just like us. The only difference between God and other souls is we enter this birth and death cycle of 5000 years while God stays away from it. In the end, He enters an old man's body. He doesn't take birth like us through a mother's womb. So He names the old man Brahma. So the lifespan of Brahma is approximately 100 years. So that's the lifespan of Brahma. Through Brahma's mouth, God gives this knowledge called Murli, which is available absolutely free of cost in all Raj Yoga meditation centers. I will give the link in the description below of the sites and YouTube videos that gives Murli. Please make use of it. And the essence of the teachings of God or Murli is that you need to consider yourself to be the soul and not this body. And remember God as a point of light. And the place, the soul world where God and we souls reside, is a golden red colored light world, which is called Parandam or Parlok. So we need to remember God as a point of light in a golden red colored sky. So it looks like that. The more we remember God as a point of light, our soul gets filled with the power that it once possessed in the beginning. So it all depends on the effort we make in remembering God constantly. If you manage to gain 100% power in your soul by remembering God constantly and by safeguarding yourselves from the worldly distractions, then there's a pretty good chance that you will claim the highest status in heaven, which is Lord Sri Narayan. So he's the King of Kings. Though the chances of you and me to become Sri Narayan remains the same, but the effort we put definitely differs. So the person who becomes Sri Narayan by making intense effort is none but the old man, Brahma, in whom God Shiva himself enters and gives these teachings. So, after the end of Brahma, the part of Sri Narayan begins, which is also the beginning of the golden age, which is the heaven. The world becomes heaven, especially India becomes heaven. So it is India, the regions around river Yamuna, which is now Delhi, will be heaven. And in heaven, there will not be any trace of vices like lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego, because they were absolutely soul conscious. And husband and wife, they don't even look at each other sexually. So when they have this thought of having a child, the wife gets pregnant. That's the yogic power, or the power of thought. That is why we build temples for them and worship them without even realizing that we were originally deities in our past births. So it is after the death of Brahma that India is becoming free of any sort of vices. So India will be the only country for the first 2500 years, and people will be living only in India. So that's why it is called the imperishable land. So all we need to do to be able to enter heaven is to remember God as much as possible, and also to listen to the direct teachings of God called Murli. So what it does is it fills the soul with power so that it can get rid of all the vices, and the divine qualities like purity, peacefulness, blissfulness, they all start to emerge. So it is true that it is only after the death of Brahma the world itself becomes heaven, but without knowing that, these words come out of Rajnikanth's mouth out of the blue. And before becoming an actor, Rajnikanth once tried to attempt suicide because of some kind of fear he faced at that time. So he went to a mountain with an intention of committing suicide, but he saw a painting of a saint in the rock. And the eyes of the saint did something miraculous to Rajnikanth, which made him leave his idea of committing suicide on that day. Then he left home. In the night, he had a beautiful dream where the same saint he saw in the painting he appeared in his dream, he was calling Rajnikanth from a distance, and there is a river in between Rajnikanth and the saint. Rajnikanth just walked over the river and reached the saint. So the next day he was feeling very peaceful, and he inquired about who the saint was, and then he knew that it was none other than Sri Raghavendra. That's how he became an ardent devotee of Sri Raghavendra. And after many years after becoming famous as an actor, he wanted to visit the place Mantralaya, which is famous for Sri Raghavendra. So he went there, and to his surprise, whatever he saw in his dream, he saw it for real there. He saw the same river, the same place. He was astonished. So, why did this happen? Did Sri Raghavendra really save Rajnikanth from suicide? So, leave Rajnikanth or anyone who believes in God. Even if an atheist was undergoing intense pressure that he wanted to commit suicide, he would undoubtedly encounter a dream that makes him so peaceful. So that's the miracle of God. It is also possible that he was a devotee of Sri Raghavendra in his past birth, which actually calmed him by the very sight of the painting of Sri Raghavendra. So the same is the reason why Julia Roberts, the Hollywood actress, felt very peaceful on the very sight of the drawing of Neem Karoli Baba. So there's a pretty good chance that she was an ancient devotee of Neem Karoli Baba in her past birth. Now coming back to Rajnikanth, is it Sri Raghavendra that performed this miracle? No. Of course, Sri Raghavendra would have taken several births after that. Nobody can escape the birth and death cycle until God comes and liberates everybody from this cycle by giving this knowledge. So obviously Sri Raghavendra would be somewhere out there, maybe listening to this video. Then who performed this miracle? Who saved Rajnikanth from committing suicide? So that's how the God designed this world drama. Whenever something very bad happens to anybody, so there will be some miracle either originally or in the dream to give them the peace that he needs to take a clear decision during those stressful times. So Sri Raghavendra has nothing to do with the process of saving Rajnikanth, but it is the play of God Shiva himself. Because he is the only God that God Shiva, he is called the Supreme Father, Parampita by Christians and Allah by Muslims. If you see three of these gods, they don't have the form, they don't have the human form. That is why God Shiva is worshipped as Ling, which represents this point of light, and the pot under that oval shaped ling represents the mouth of Brahma through which God delivers this knowledge. So God is one, and he is solely responsible for saving the whole humans from the hell and taking them back to heaven. Just like all famous people who has reached that peak level by intense effort throughout their lifetime, complains, even Rajnikanth complains that despite all the wealth he has accumulated in billions and the fame he has, he still does not feel peaceful. What is the reason? So everybody thinks that after accumulating wealth and fame, they will attain the peacefulness. But after attaining that, to their surprise, they don't feel, they feel nothing after achieving that. So everybody's aim is to achieve peaceful life, but unfortunately they don't seem to achieve it till death. But they were peaceful at the time of birth. And even when we were kids, we would be peaceful without acquiring anything. So you can see kids playing with anything they get. They can even play with sand. So how is it possible for kids to attain peace out of nothing? But we attain nothing by achieving anything. Actually, God's sense is filled with the power of peace and purity at the time of birth. But as we grow older, we lose peace, because of which we get attracted to the external world. But if you see closely, kids don't get attracted to anything. Even if you have the television on, you may get hooked to the television screen, but the child, it doesn't bother about it. It just plays whatever it gets. That is because it has the power of peace and purity within it, so it doesn't have to rely on anything to get it. But as we grow older, we get attracted to the worldly things at the cost of peace. Yes, we lose peace only when we lose the power of purity and peacefulness, that we start getting attracted to the external things. So that's the sign that we are losing peace. This is beautifully depicted in Ramayana, where Sita gets attracted by a golden deer. So she thinks she will be happy if she gets hold of that deer. So she sends her husband Ram to catch the deer. You know the rest of the story, so that puts her into trouble. The same is the mentality of all humans, that they will get peaceful by attaining worldly things, but the consequence they suffer is enormous, and they don't really understand what's going on. In heaven, men and women will be very beautiful, but we don't get attracted to them. So to understand that, you will go back to your childhood. You are surrounded by very beautiful boys and girls, but you don't get attracted to them, but you feel happy without even getting attracted to anything. So that is the state of mind we possessed throughout our life while we were deities. And God wants you to have that even now in this birth. It is possible just by bringing your awareness from the external world to yourself, to the soul and God. So the more you remember God as a point of light, you will feel yourself restoring your peaceful and blissful state. and you will be gradually moving away from these five vices: lust, anger, greed, and attachment and ego. If you make sure throughout the day that you are seeing God as a point of light in your mind, no matter what you do, no matter whom you speak with, then you will feel that you are peaceful continuously. But instead of remembering God, if you are attracted to the worldly things, you will see your peace decreasing very fastly. But without doing this, no matter where you go, no matter what you achieve, it is highly impossible for you to achieve peaceful and blissful state of mind. Om Shanti. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button and please leave your valuable comments. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing to this channel to get videos of this nature. And please share these videos with your friends and relatives so that they can also make use of it and bring peace to their life and to their family members. Thanks for watching.